what's in this text amendment. We've looked at other counties. We've met with many, many different citizens in Tazewell County, not just landowners, but residents like Fred Lawrence and rural homeowners, people that live in our small communities. And we've gotten a lot of people, a lot of support, tons of support. The general community wants this text ordinance to pass. We've spent hours upon hours at meetings. I know you folks have seen us around, and sorry about that, but we are very concerned citizens, and we very strongly believe that this is something that Tazewell County needs to act on. Despite what the state's doing, again, you can work with this text amendment going forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tim Bear.
My name is Tim Bear, and we had just a few brief comments. As I was getting ready for the county board meeting today, I found on the Tazewell County website the logo, quote, "keeping people first in all decisions." I wish to use this logo as a basis for my remarks. We of the United Citizens Tazewell County want to thank our Tazewell County board members for their service in debating and voting on the issue of renewable energy that is before the board tonight. And we want to encourage our board members to keep the Tazewell County logo in mind as the issue of renewable energy is considered. This logo, "keeping people first in all decisions," applies to both sides of the issue. As Americans, we of the United Citizens Tazewell County believe in freedom for all, both the rights of those who want renewable energy projects on their land and those who do not want renewable energy projects on their land. We believe that the United Citizens Tazewell County text amendment is a fairly balanced ordinance where a compromise for both sides has been reached. Example given, those who want renewable energy accept an increased setback, and those who do not want renewable energy accept that renewable energy will be closer to their property than preferred. We of the United Citizens of Tazewell County respectfully ask for a yes vote on the proposed text amendment, as this would indeed keep people first in all decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, Craig Kilby.
Yeah, my name is Craig Kilby from Mackinac, Illinois, and I also farm south of Mackinac in the area that is being considered for wind development. Also a member and participant of United Citizens Tazewell County. A lot of things have been mentioned tonight, and I just kind of want to summarize a little bit of that and also address a couple of things that were mentioned earlier from some of the proponents for wind turbines. One thing was mentioned also here tonight about the no turbine signs. I think a lot of people around here over the last few months have probably noticed those if you go on the southeast part of Tazewell County. But they aren't exactly being referenced here correctly. They were actually put out initially to make people aware of the other landowners who actually was participating in contracting for these, not whether or not they were for or against wind turbines. I think nearly everyone, in our group is really for renewable energy, just not the way that we have it in this county, or as it was actually going to be allowed to be constructed in this county. So very interested in making sure that we are protecting our citizens. That's how we began our group, and very like-minded people became acquainted and And we had some very, very talented people, as you've been able to witness tonight. Electricity, you know, we've been looking at all these renewables, and has anybody's electricity bill gone down? Well, it hasn't, because it's intermittent energy. So there has to always be another form of electricity that's available, and will always have to be available in order to compensate for the days that we don't have wind and we don't have sun. And we've had a few of those certainly in Illinois, and we will always in the future as well. So doubling the amount of infrastructure that we require in order to make our renewables pencil out in the state is also a problem. Certainly one we can address. I think the other thing that was mentioned also was school tax dollars from these property taxes that are going to be a part of this. Based on the state of Illinois Board of Education, about 9% of the funding for schools in the state is paid by federal, 65% property taxes and local funding, and 26% by the state, 26%. So one of the other things, though, that state funding is evidence-based. So whenever we get a dollar that comes in from maybe a wind turbine or property taxes, and they see that the state measures all that in their metrics, they will probably no doubt take away a dollar from the state funding that we receive. So when they sit here and tell you all about the benefits of all these towers and the tax dollars that are going to be generated, true, and that the state of Illinois will just take those away from us that we get already today. Okay, so the net gain is zero. The other thing was mentioned also is the amount of acres required by a single landowner in order to participate and have a turbine, that there was not a single tract of land by a single ownership in this county that was 832 acres. I think it was kind of addressed a little bit, but it will be clear that adjoining landowners that are also participating in a project also fill in the gap that would be present if there wasn't an 832 acre tract available. So that is not a valid argument for whether or not they could place turbines in this county. Decommissioning is probably the biggest thing, I think, as we look at it. It's looking down the road, all the different generations in the future that we're going to shoulder this on. And I'm 5th generation. I spoke with my father, who's 92 today. He was hoping that we had some positive results tonight. And certainly he doesn't have a lot of years left to be a participant in this, but he's certainly concerned about it. With that, I want to also mention and recognize all the board members. You've endured a lot with us, and we've enjoyed getting to know all of you. I know we have some new members on the board, but again, we certainly have enjoyed being part of this, and you've been gracious in your enduring our efforts as well. So with that, thank you.
All right, that concludes the public comment section. Just want to thank everyone who participated this evening. I think it was done in a respectful manner. Everyone was allowed to speak uninterrupted, and so I thank you for that. We're moving on to communications from elected and appointed county officials.
I didn't know that we were going to be allowed to speak tonight, but could I say something about health issues in relationship to solar farms?
You know, we actually made several announcements before to fill out in order to speak tonight. I don't know if you were not here, but at least 3 announcements were made, so I'm going to move on with the meeting, okay?
Last night,
Sir,
last time we
sir.
were here, Dr. Lomax.
Okay, any comments from elected or appointed county officials? Greg?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out about the Broadway Road here east of Pekin. It was a project that was submitted over 5 years ago for federal and state funding, and we started setting aside the local match for that, and we set that aside over the it was recently completed. That road is the busiest county road in the county. It's also a lot busier than a lot of the state roads are that are in the county. And we have gotten a terrific road that's safe for travel. And I just wanted to recognize our county engineer, Dan Parr, and also, I don't think Paul Augsburger's here. He was our lead engineer on the project. it kinda got drawn out because we had issues moving the utilities, and we heard a lot of comments about when's it gonna get done. But it was worthwhile. If you haven't driven it, I recommend you do. It really turned out to be a nice project. I wanted to thank, Dan and Paul for their work on that.
It is a great road, and thank you, Dan. And thank your staff. Okay, any other comments, Nick?
Mr. Chairman, just before we get to the consent agenda, it took me a while to figure this out, but the resolution numbers for 6 and 7 are reversed.
They are, yes.
Okay.
So when we get to those, I'll just refer to their number rather than the actual bill number, but they are inverted, so. Any other comments from elected or appointed county officials? Roy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. When we get to the consent agenda on E2332, since we've already appointed this particular board member, will we be able to pull that still?
No, it's already been approved by the board.
I ask a quick question.
Yes.
I checked in with our GOP group, and I asked a couple of executive members what names they had submitted for consideration for you. Is that not a wise thing to do, to interact with the GOP and ask for their thoughts on possible recommendations? I'm just not sure what the procedure is. Could you explain how that works?
This is public comments right now, so it's not a question and answer time. So I'd be happy to discuss that with you over, but we follow state statute when we do that.
Okay. That's why I asked if we could pull it still, but I guess that won't be the case.
All right. Any other comments from appointed or electeds? All right, moving on. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from January 25th? Motion by Atkins, second by Schneider. Any deletions, additions, corrections? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That brings us down to our agenda. Items 1 through 5 are being pulled tonight, so they won't be on the agenda. Russ?
6 and 7, please.
Items 6 and 7.
Or 7 and 6.
Yeah.
Per deck.
Good. Item 9, okay. Any other items?
Yeah, 14,
14? All right, can I get a motion for the remainder?
Yes.
Motion by Nelm, second by Sam Goddard. All those. I'm pulling item 17 also, okay. So, okay, I have a motion and a second on the remainder. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Can I get a motion on the appointments A through D? Motion by Graff, second by Longfellow. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, back to our agenda. Item 6, which is the text amendment, would be LU 2504. It shows, 05. It's the text amendment, okay, the energy code. Can I get a motion to get that on the floor? Motion by Hall, and a second. Second by Kriegel. All right, so we've had a lot of discussion already on this issue thus far. Comments? Russ?
Well, I think the public testimony did a great job in describing most of the factors. I just wanted to sort of, from the inside skinny as a board member who attends ZBA and also land use, wanted to share that the ZBA had an issue with the text amendment, but when they were prompted over and over again by guess who, they really couldn't come up with any specific objections. The only person who gave me any feedback at all was Dwayne Lesson, our great ZBA chairman, and he sort of did that a la carte. Then it went to land use, and I made a motion to table it, and it was tabled for 6 months. That tabling, that moratorium and the tabling were used by the wind farm companies to propose to, as ammunition against Tazewell County, against our local zoning authority, to pass this state law. Very, very sad. I wish in retrospect I had not tabled it, but it's history, it's already done. So in the last meeting, I did take it off the table, and we did, by a vote of 5-3, recommend approval to this county board, for all the reasons that you heard. So, this actually will then, it is written in such a way that a vote, and Dave, you correct me if I say this wrong, I know you will, or Bill, but I believe a vote yes approves the United Citizens of Tazewell County text amendment.
That's my understanding, yes.
Yes. So, I recommend approval, obviously. Thank you.
Greg?
I guess I sat through most of the testimony too, that in the actual facts where the CBA turned it down 100%. And I think if we would have voted in August, it would have probably went down also. I think we were trying to get something that was a little better than what we had, and I guess I wish we would work with this group and try to come up with something that would be workable. ZBA the code is extremely stringent, and it was somewhat proved during the ZBA that there would not be wind turbines in Tazewell County. I have no problems with some areas voting them down if the people don't want their areas, but I see the Hopedale one, I see them being good neighbors and that being working out fine. The other problem is we're voting on something against the state law. The state law is mandating us to come within 120 days to meet with what they do. I know there's some trailer bills, and I know Mr. Deppert with the Farm Bureau has been working with those also. He's very aware of those. But as far as how this is going to finish out, so I don't understand this even be a legal motion if we're really going against what the state's doing. I know some people say, well, let's have something so in case they come in and do it. We have a moratorium. The moratorium lasts as long as the state requiring us. If the state moves along, maybe we bump the moratorium further along, so we do that. So we do have time. So let's work with our code now, get it towards, I think there's some areas that maybe we can work to try to tailor our code on those areas the state isn't mandating us to make this as good for both sides as possible. So I don't understand why we have to hurry up and force this vote through when it's really against the law, so.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with almost everything that was said by all of the people speaking in favor of this particular amendment. Despite that, I'm going to be voting no. And the reason I'm going to be voting no, Mr. Sim just alluded to it, I believe that even if we could tonight legally pass this, which I think is debatable, even if we could, we would be putting ourselves on a clock that we have to, in the next couple of months, change the ordinance to the very minimum or the very maximum allowed by law. Even if it is okay to do this tonight, all we do is either set up a situation where in a few months we know we will have an ordinance that violates state law. I don't think that's a good idea. Or we know we will change the ordinance that we just adopted tonight, which I think is also a bad idea. I'm not in favor of doing either of those. I'm in favor of following the law. Now, admittedly, this is a law that I believe I referred to as asinine, stupid, ill-conceived, tyrannical. I probably had some other things I said about it, but I never called it unconstitutional. And I never called it that because, unfortunately, I believe it is a constitutional, even if stupid, use of the General Assembly's authority. They have the right to tell us that we don't have the authority to decide this. They have the right to say that our landowners are not protected for certain types of land use by their neighbors. It's an incredibly stupid thing they've done, and I will continue to criticize it. In fact, earlier today I was criticizing it to a member of the General Assembly. He didn't vote in favor of this. He wasn't there for the particular meeting. He was just sworn in after this had been voted on. And he agreed with me. It was an incredibly stupid use of their authority. However, it's their authority. And we don't have the authority, I believe, to take this action. And so even though the moral authority may be with the United Citizens of Tazewell County, the legal authority is not. And so I will be voting no.
Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so the United Citizens of Tazewell County know, I grew up on a farm in rural Minears, and I support the efforts they put forth. I'm in favor of the efforts they put forth. I congratulate them on a job well done. But you heard Mr. Deppert sworn in tonight. If you missed it, he said he would support the Constitution of the state of Illinois. All of us took that same oath. All of us swore to uphold the law. After spending 35 years in law enforcement, I can't, in good conscience, vote for a resolution that I know is illegal. And for those reasons, I'm going to be voting no on the ordinance.
Nancy?
Of one of just a very few of you who are farmers on this, I represent this little group, very small group, by the way. And I want to just reiterate that I agree with Mr. Nick. I agree with Nick, and I feel the same way. I so appreciate what you people have put into this. I support what you're doing, but we are in a position that we cannot probably vote yes because of what has been done by the government.
Right.
Yeah, as an elected official board member, I think all of us also have taken an oath to serve the public interest and protect the public offers. And it is our collective duty to indeed eradicate favoritism and misuse of public funds. For that reason, I will be voting for the ordinance.
Russ?
There's a few members who I respect tremendously on this board and usually vote in accordance with their input, but I disagree. I follow laws almost all the time. The only time I don't is when the law doesn't make any sense. When the law is perverted in and of itself, ipso facto. You have an obligation, in my view, to not support that law. That's called ethics, morality, and integrity. And that's what you signed up for, to to be an elected official and represent the citizens in Tazewell County. I can tell you, and I said this in the land use meeting, I know the state, and you guys know the state. In fact, you know the direction of the state. And this isn't going to be decided in 30 days or 120 days. There's going to be lawsuits. And case law is going to tell us what we got to do. And if you want to wait and have a moratorium until all that's solved for years and years, that doesn't make any sense. So what I also said is that we passed this, and then when we get better, more current information, whether it's from the crazy people in the state, in the Senate, in the House, or from wind farm or evidence or economic development indices or whatever, we would, in fact, I volunteered to make the motion to amend the ordinance. I always said the day I tabled it that we're not going to have a perfect ordinance. And we have the right at any board meeting to modify that ordinance and make it a better ordinance. So I'm all for that. But to let perfection be the enemy of improvement is insane. So those people who want to sit around and throw illegality around and throw perfect around.
Don't make it personal.
Well, I'm not. I'm talking about theory.
But you talked about morality and ethics of board members that,
Yeah,
anyway.
very important stuff. Okay. Very important stuff. So I'm not saying if we pass this, it has to stay in cement. I'm saying we pass this and we do the best we can today or tonight, and then down the road we get new information, then we modify it accordingly. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Dan and Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I usually agree with Mr. Crawford that in this particular circumstance, and I have a different view. I feel it would be in the best interest of our residents of Tazewell County to not pass this, because this ordinance seems to only benefit just a few people. You have to have a giant chunk of land to have a wind turbine, right? And there's very few people who do that. No one's being forced to have a wind turbine on their property. You have the choice, yes or no. If you sign up, there's monetary benefit. If not, you don't have to. No one's forcing you to do it. Thank you.
Roy?
No, I just wanted to add that I think we are Tazewell. We're better than they are in Springfield. At least now we are. Put that to your thoughts when you vote. We are Tazewell.
Anyone else? Mark?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I wonder, will we not be the focus of a lawsuit from the first wind turbine company that comes along that after this law goes into effect?
Yes.
Then why would we vote for this? I think we should vote no.
Vivian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that I'm just one vote, but I believe that I will stand with the people that were in this room tonight, and if they don't want this, I would vote for it to not pass. So, thank you. Even though I know it's going nowhere.
Mike?
I've not supported solar farms or windmills since the day one, and I'm gonna vote yes on this.
One more time. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's not be scared about lawsuits. Bring it on. Thank you.
So, I'm going to encourage board members to vote no tonight, to follow the law. There's a lot of laws in this state that I don't like, and we have 90 days to have our zoning department to make as tight a zoning ordinance as we can. But I don't know how we can just thwart state laws. There's a lot of state laws that I don't like. And I don't have the authority to just say this to the state. And I don't know I really appreciate everyone that's come out tonight and has come out for the last year. But I think we have a chance to do this right the first time. Because if you play this scenario out, like Mr. Goddard said, the first time, and we're gonna go to court and we're gonna lose, and it's gonna cost taxpayers money, I'm not sure why we would do that. Why don't we get the best ordinance that we can? And, Dave, did you have a comment?
Yeah, we got a legal.
Can you use your,
I'm sorry.
I appreciate Bill's interpretation. Has there been a legal opinion that has been rendered to us as far as our decision on this tonight?
yes, I believe Matt Drake from the ZBA highly encourages us to vote no on this particular issue. All the findings of fact out of ZBA were negative. So for those who vote yes, just be prepared to look at the reasons and try to turn those. So, any other questions? Okay, we're going to do a roll call.
Questions? Okay.
Yes.
Just to make sure, is a yes vote in favor?
Yes, a yes is to vote for the United Citizens Ordinance, and a no vote is to turn it down.
Atkins,
No.
Crawford,
Yes.
Deppert,
No.
Goddard, Mark,
No.
Goddard, Sam,
No.
Graff,
No.
Hageman,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Jostin,
No.
Crable,
Yes.
Longfellow,
No.
Mennel,
Yes.
Mingus,
Yes.
Nellens,
Yes.
Pageant,
Yes.
Frail,
No.
Rich Simpson, Schneider,
No.
Sin,
No.
Smith,
Yes.
Okay, so the third time in 14 years, I'm voting no. So, I think we have an opportunity here to send it back and get it right the first time. All right, moving on to item 7, the official Fond du Lac zoning map. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Motion by Schneider, second by Nelms. So we had some discussion on this tonight. Bill, I'm going to need some help on this. A yes is to,
The way in which it is phrased on the agenda, at least, is to approve the change in zoning.
the rezoning.
Yes,
So if you vote yes, we rezone the property.
exactly,
A no vote denies the rezoning.
correct.
Greg?
I think we got caught up in the solar farm with this, but ZBA already, voted that down. I guess the question is R1 against A1. I'm a proponent of ag all the way, but, you notice all the people that show up, there's probably 16 to 20 houses around here, so it's R1, and the area is R1, so to revert it back to A1 would be a spot zoning, so we're not doing a solar farm here, we're doing a zoning change.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, for making that clear. Again, this is a shift in thinking. R1 is what it is, and R1 is how it should remain. And let's, again, Mr. Parliamentarian, a no vote means it remains as an R1.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Vivian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. Why is this being addressed? I mean, why do they want to change from R1 to A1? I'm sorry.
In order to build a solar farm on it. So this is that first step.
So it has to be ag.
Correct, correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
So, Mr. Chairman, the ZBA has already voted down the special use, so they can't build a solar farm there. But this is, it's kind of interesting that we have people here that they're upset with the state of Illinois that our elected officials passed a law, whether we like it or not, and made a decision. And here we have another group of elected, another board, the Fond du Lac Park District, and we're gonna tell them no. All they wanna do is rezone it from R1 to Ag 1, and, they're elected officials. We should let them do that. I think we should vote yes to change the zone to A1.
Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just the history on this is that, the ZBA voted unanimously. First of all, you've all heard me brag about the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. I love it, okay? But for the first time since 1978, which is a long time, they came up with findings of fact that I thought were flawed from the beginning to the end. And they had recommended approval of this solar farm with 11 yeses. My hat's off to Dwayne Lesson, the chairman of ZBA, and the ZBA members, and Jackie and the department, who worked very hard and did the heavy lifting of changing each one of those findings from positive to negative for legitimate reasons. And so it came to us unanimously by ZBA to deny it. My motion in land use was to concur with that and to recommend denial of the rezoning. As Mark accurately pointed out, the special use was killed at ZBA, but the zoning was still available. So we took care of that in land use to recommend it here, and we need to do that now. Just like with wind farms, there's a lot of us that are for wind farms in the right place. Same with solar. I'm a big fan of solar, if it's in the right place. In the middle, not even next to, but in the middle of the neighborhood is not the right place. Thank you.
All right. Kim?
Yes, thank you. Russ, you just said it right. I'm not for any kind of spot zoning whatsoever, especially in a neighborhood like that. Thank you.
Nick?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'm confused. If the ZBA killed the solar farm, why would they still want to continue to make this agriculture?
Because it's agriculture.
Yeah, okay. Bill?
If I can answer Mr. Graff's question, I am speculating, of course, but assuming that there was any desire for some kind of litigation, litigating on just the special use would be easier than having to litigate on the special use and the rezoning. In addition, this could be the camel's nose in the tent. If they get the rezoning, then down the road they might be able to get the special use. In this particular situation, we still have the authority to take action, and so I'm going to be voting no to this in order to prevent down the road a situation where I feel unable to vote no. So this is a different situation where thankfully we still have the authority, at least as of today we do.
All right. Any other comments? The vote for yes changes the zoning. A vote no keeps the zoning the same. Dave?
Yeah, I just wanna say, I went out there today, this afternoon, and they did a good half mile of, solar plates, and that whole area with the fence and everything. I mean, it totally would not be congruent for that area at all. And I think it's contrary with the park district, should wanna do it to the land also.
Right. Again, a yes changes the zoning. and no keeps it the same. So all those in favor signify by aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Sorry. Those opposed? There we go. Okay, motion fails. All right, moving on, item 9, can I get a motion to approve this? Greg, I think you pulled this, motion by Sid. Get a second? Second by Schneider. Greg, you pulled this?
Yeah, I see no highway minutes in which we have them before every meeting and stuff like that, so I'm just curious how many people bid, and what was the next closest bid?
Yeah, we had 2 bidders. We've battled this for years about getting more bidders, but some dealers don't wanna mess with them. You know, they can sell right now they can sell trucks anywhere. So we had 2 bids, both from Morton. Truck Centers bid a Western Star, and the Kenworth dealer, whatever it is, in Morton, bid, and it was nearly $50,000 difference in the truck. It was 277,000, I believe, was what the Kenworth was, and 220 some was the Western Star.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That brings us to item 14, the creation of a budget director. Get a motion by Paget, second by Prail. Is that why you pulled this?
Yeah, I pulled it. And, again, I'd just like to say I'm opposed to the upcoming vote for approval on the creation of the position for budget director in the county, at the administrative level. In light of the current economic environment, there is also concern in our community as to whether it's prudent to be spending large amounts of money, and if this position is really necessary.
One second, right. Hey, can I have people in the lobby way keep it down? Well, we can't close both doors for the Open Meetings Act, but I just need them to. Thank you, Dan. You can close one of the doors, but we need to keep one open. So, okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the current economic environment, there is also concern in our community as to whether it is prudent to be spending large amounts of money, and if this position is really necessary at this time. This is a county where the average individual taxpayer's median income is $35,587 per year, with 0 benefits and no insurance. I'm not going to go into the history of Tazewell County Empire Building, but I will say this: now that the current board will move again to create a new administrative government by adding to their empire, which now includes this new position. If you remember last month, we created we added to the empire the Assistant County Administrator / Finance Director position. This is at a time when the population of Tazewell County has dropped 3.7%. That's from 2010 to 2020. So again, we cannot continue to live on the backs of taxpayers. We cannot keep growing government. We must be mindful of our constitutional elected officials, whose duties and responsibilities should never be compromised by imposing authority at the administrative level. The constitutional elected officials and their staff are the difference makers that allow Tazewell to work affordably and efficiently for the taxpayers, particularly during these economic difficult times. As elected board members, I've said this earlier, we have taken an oath to serve the public interest and to protect the public coffers. It is our collective duty to eradicate favoritism and misuse of public funds. Those of us who are new, that may not know what administrative government is, it's where the elected leaders create more and more unelected government positions.
Let's try to stay on topic. We're talking about the budget director.
Right, and what we're doing is we're taking an ever-increasing role to put people in position for day-to-day governance. There's little oversight, transparency, or incentive to minimize the costs they impose on tax-paying citizens and less of a voice in our government process. Administrative government is not healthy for the governing body.
Let's,
conflicts
Roy,
with both
Roy, bring it
constitutional-
back into the position of budget
Okay,
director.
I'm a no for this, obviously, and for the reasons that our taxpayers have asked me to speak on their behalf. Thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, this position's been needed for several years, and for one thing, because of budget constraints, we could not do this. We're at a point now where we can afford to do it. I believe it's costing us money not to add a person in this position. And so we need to approve this.
Bill and then Nick.
I'm gonna be a no vote on this one, and, I don't have a list of reasons why, other than, I don't have a list of reasons why we should do it. And I just haven't been convinced that we need this position, so, on that basis, I'm gonna be voting no.
Nick?
This is the second time we've looked at this resolution, and the position went back to HR committee, again at my request, so that we could, see how it would fit in better with the hierarchy of the county. The HR committee did alter this resolution from where it was presented at the last meeting. They dropped the pay grade from an 18 to a 17, changed the position title. I agree with Mr. Mennel. We can't be in a position as we were a year ago when we had no budget, we had no finance director, and we had no county administrator. We're getting to the point, we've operated so lean for so long, we can no longer do the business of the county without having the appropriate staff to do that. Our county administrator and the assistant administrator work 70-hour weeks fairly often. We need to get some redundancy in our system, and we need to provide them some relief. And we need to give us time to start on a budget, probably in May, and considering we haven't hired anybody for this position yet, assuming it's approved tonight, it will probably be May or maybe even later before we get a position on board. So for those reasons, I'm voting in support of it.
Mike?
I support the position also, but there's a reason it hasn't been brought up. We have, the county system as a whole needs reviewed and a lot of adjustment. And it takes a lot of man hours to do that, and that needs to be done, and this person will assist in that.
Any other comments, Russ?
I can't help myself. When I was the county auditor, chief fiscal officer, budget director was one of the hats I wore, and it was 70 hours a week then during budget time for months. And that was part of the job. And I think I was paid about $23,000 a year. That was a long time. Those are the 40s. But the point is, that was the 1840s, Nick said. That was before Lincoln. That's what Carol told you the other night. Anyway, my question is this. I don't want to, I mean, you know I'm a conservative about money, but I do want to talk about authority, because ever since I've been on this board, when we have a county administrator and it's time to have a new county administrator, it's up to the board chairman appoints a committee, a screening committee, we interview, they recommend a certain person, and then the board chooses that person. Well, I have a question now. You probably know where I'm going. If we're gonna put a person in and say that's sort of the deputy administrator, then does the board lose its authority to pick the new administrator? Do they have to then pick the deputy administrator? Did Mike then usurp, not you personally, Mike, but the position of administrator? Did you usurp the authority of the county board to decide who
So we're talking about
follows
the
you?
budget director now, the assistant county administrator, that's already been passed. This is the budget director.
Well, okay, so
Talking
then
about
the
that.
next thing is, then when you do that, which then I assume you did, if you said that just now, then now we gotta, this whole thing is then to put the real person in that's gonna do that budget work, which wouldn't have been necessary had you not done the first part. I'm with Mr. Atkins, I'm opposed, thank you.
Right?
Yeah, and maybe we can look at this a different way. We graded now at 17, and we can effectively, since we seem to be in some disagreement, maybe we can compromise and call this a contract and eliminate the grade and do a 3-year contract like we did with our county administrator. That way we're not locked in. We accomplish what some are already concerned about with regards to the upcoming budget. I appreciate the fact that us old timers, Russ, we knew what it was to roll up our sleeves and work 70 hours, but I guess this generation is a little different. So in keeping in vogue with the new generation and thinking, I think a compromise of a 3-year contract, pretty much what we did with the county administrator, and watch and see how this works out. That way we're not locked into a pay grade. We can agree on the salary, and in the spirit of compromise, everybody here wins.
Dave?
I think you make an excellent point, and that is rolling up your sleeves and doing the job. However, if you don't have the qualifications to do the job, I don't care how far up your sleeves are, you're not gonna get the job done. We've got a huge budget. Fiscal responsibility is the most important thing in this county. We have many components. Best practice is very important. Also, putting these components in a check and balance system, we can't afford not to have quality people in these positions. I fully support this.
So, Greg?
Representing the property committee, I'll just give you a scenario that we had. 2 years ago, we hired Farnsworth to do a study about McKenzie building windows. And throughout the lack of people in positions last year, we didn't get the opportunity to get that. It was the fall, and then rolling into the next year, we didn't get an opportunity to put that out for bids. Just in that time frame alone, for lack of manpower and not getting it done, this bids came in, proposed a few years ago, 2 years ago, from Farnsworth was $800,000, and the bids came in this year at $1.8 million. So that's just the cost of aluminum, the cost of glass, and we delayed some time over a year, and that's what it costs. So I don't know if we need this position or not, but I'm just saying with the lack of people in the place to do the job, it costs us money. And we're getting ready to do an asphalt bid for parking lots, and that was proposed 2 years ago in the campaign budget 2 years ago, and we're not even going forward with that yet, bidding, and I know asphalt isn't any cheaper either. So I just wanted to say that it is very important that we keep people and staff to do the progress of at least the property committee, because it's very expensive. Thank you.
I would point out too that when we lost the administrator and our budget director, I mean, we're still cleaning up things from 21 that we got that far behind, and that cost us money too. It cost us a lot of money. So, all right. Should do a roll call.
Can we do a motion though to put that proposal for consideration on a 3-year contract, which would keep everybody moving along for 3 years like we did with the administrator? It's a 3-year deal, and we can eliminate the grade.
Can you amend that to a contract?
I think there is properly a motion to amend. The question is whether there's a second for it.
Whether there's a what?
Well, I think that Mr. Paget has properly made a motion to amend this, but I have not heard a second for the motion.
Second by Hageman. So, contract, I mean, we need fill in the details.
Yeah, it would have to be like we had talked about with the other position that Mr. Paget had this motion. I believe I was the second on that one. That there would have to be a contract worked out. I mean, we're not making that contract part of the motion. He's not giving us all the details of the contract. That would be something that would be worked out if this amendment passed and then the main motion as amended passed.
So we have a motion and a second to make this a contracted position. Does everybody understand it, Mike?
I'm not gonna support this, cause I think it doesn't set up a, even flow of responsibilities, supervising, and the workload in the office. It has to be an employee that reports and can supervise, and I don't think a contract person would, satisfy those needs.
Mark?
Mr. Chairman, we already voted that down, at the last minute, an idea of a contract, because how would that work? Because, you can't dictate what an outside contractor does, so it really wouldn't work, I don't think. It has to be an employee if we had one.
It was not to be an outside